So is Jackson diagnosed at birth?
Yeah, so in Belgium where we live, newborn babies have hearing screenings.
Yeah.
So I think he was about 10 days old or something
Oh,
when we had the
wow.
first test, and he failed it.
Mm.
And they were like, oh, that's normal, it happens a lot. It's probably some fluid or probably maybe he has a cold or something. So they told me not to worry, so I didn't. And I checked with some friends and they had the same with their baby. So I think it was a week or 2 weeks later that we had to go back, and he failed it again. And I was like, And they were like, okay, we're going to send you a referral to a hospital, and we're going to do some further tests. And that's when I started like, maybe this isn't normal. Yeah. And then I think he was about a month old when we were in the hospital, and they told us he had they didn't tell us yet he was deaf. They just said he has a very severe loss of hearing. Yeah. And I don't remember how we got home.
Yeah.
I remember I was crying I was at the parking lot. I was paying for the parking ticket. I was crying. And they go, are you all right? Are you all right? I was like, no, I'm not all right.
Yeah. I remember because my son was a little bit older. He was a year old when he found out. And I remember being in the parking lot in the doctor's office, just sobbing, thinking like, I said I love you to him every night, and he's never heard it. Like, he's never heard it. Like, it just was like this, like, you think through all of the things that he has not heard that whole time, and how, like, and then also, like, I don't know what it looks like going forward. Like, I have no idea what his life is going to be like. I had this picture of what his life was going to be like, and now I have no idea.
I think that's one of the hardest things as a parent. You have to let go of this dream, of this expectations that you have when it was your firstborn, me as well. And it's like, no, this is not what I envisioned. This is not the life I had. You're not gonna plan the whole life of your child, but it's just you have to let go of all those things you had in mind for him, all the things you wanted him to. I love music. That was my first like. No way. How is this? Why? Yeah.
So he was 9 months old, right?
Yeah.
When he got activated.
Yeah.
How was activation with that kid that little?
Well, with the activation, because you see, there's a lot of videos on YouTube, and the doctors, and the doctors really, everybody was like, okay, everybody's reaction is different. Every child is different. So we didn't have any high expectations. We were just hoping to see some sort of reaction. And at first he was a bit scared. He just like, I saw him like, okay, what's happening? And then he reached out for me like, oh. And then I think already like 5 minutes after he was smiling, and we were clapping, and he was like, oh yeah. So yeah.
That's
yours?
Awesome. His first, again, I remember all those videos were like super popular right when he was getting his first implant, and I remember being like kind of frustrated because I knew that wasn't like common even.
Reality,
you know?
yeah.
And so at his first activation, it's pretty non-dramatic. Like I remember having like a video camera, like wanting to capture the moment, and it wasn't like, I think he was hearing something, but we didn't really know. And then his second activation was a little bit cooler because he at that point was 7, and so he could talk about it, and he was like, it sounds like there's like aliens and robots in my ears, you know, and then he was really confused because he could understand what he was saying, but he couldn't understand what we were saying, and but he was hearing things, you know, and that was really cool.
Did you do you feel like the expectations that you had before Liam had his implants, were they met? Were they exceeded?
Exceeded for sure. I don't know, you know, I think that's the other part, like when we first found out about his diagnosis, so much of our concerns, I didn't know to be concerned about, like, he may never talk or he may never hear. Like, I was concerned about, like, what's it going to feel like? Is he going to get made fun of at school? You know, like all of those things. And then as you start to go down this journey and then you realize, like, oh, like, it's not a guarantee that this will work, or it's not a guarantee that the hearing aids will work, whatever. You know, we had hearing aids for a little bit, and then the implants, like, then I was sort of like, oh, no, you know. And so then now, today, when he's doing so well, it's amazing. Like, there's times where I find out, you know, statistics about the literacy rates for deaf children or things like that, and Liam has already, far surpassed that. That it's like sometimes I just have to pinch myself that I didn't even know what to be, what to expect, and he's gone so far ahead of that.
Yeah.
What about for you?
Jackson is still very young. He's almost 3, so he started school very recently. So it's still early to say. But for now, I think that's perhaps one of the things that is that I treasure with having a child with cochlear implants. That every little step that they take, every little achievement, it's just it's so intense.
Yeah.
It's like every little thing you treasure it. It's so.
Yeah.
I think you have hearing kids, so that you can make the comparison.
Yeah.
It's just.
Yeah. It is for sure. And you're at that stage like 3. I remember Liam, like when he started school, he was 3, and it was kind of full day school that he started, and that was when things really. It was the same time that he got his cochlear implant, and so I think both of those things together, like he just took off. His language exploded, and I remember him going from being like our first parent-teacher conference where they were like, he's really quiet and he doesn't really say much, to then like he's talking all the time and he's got full sentences, and so you're like right. I feel like you're right on the cusp of things really kind of blossoming for him.
Well, there are already a couple of people who told us that he's quite ahead of his kids his age in vocabulary and making sentences, long sentences, and of course that would bring a smile to the face of every parent. But for
especially,
us,
I know when you're like, you don't know. Oh, that's so great.
Yeah. So that's good for a technique that I never heard of a cochlear implant before.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was that process like, for you for choosing and how you ended up with Medel? Like what?
Well, we got a referral to the university hospital in Antwerp, and so when we got the diagnosis, that was very tearful and very dramatic and everything. And then we went to Antwerp, and that was a total different experience, because the people there, they pictured a very different future for Jackson. All of a sudden, it was like, oh, okay, there is something. He can learn how to speak. He can go to mainstream school. He can. So these children don't even have an accent. They're like other kids. I was like, she painted a totally different picture, and that was really an eye opener. And then we met the surgeon who would do the surgery, and he's a very well-respected surgeon and professor. So we spoke about Medel, and yeah, it's such an emotional period at that time. I wasn't like gonna check all the multiple brands. I was like, okay, you're the professional, you have all the expertise. You're gonna operate on my son. If you say it's Medel, it'll be Medel.
Yeah, totally. I was super overwhelmed. I remember our audiologist, in an effort to be very impartial, which I appreciate, they just kind of give you the 3 stacks of information, and they say, just do your research and let us know what you want. And I kept being like, well, but what would you do? And they're like, you just choose what you want. It's up to you. It's a personal decision.
Yeah.
And I remember just feeling like I just didn't understand. I didn't even understand how a cochlear implant worked. I was so overwhelmed. I didn't know what questions to even ask to understand the differences.
No.
And I had a couple of good conversations with other parents that kind of helped. And we ended up like, we were attracted to the rondo. That was like interesting to us, and so that's kind of what made us look at Medel. And then we found out the big thing for us was the reliability of not having any recalls.
Yeah.
And just feeling like, I didn't think, I was like, when someone told me you could get a recall on this implant in your kid's head, I was like, wait, what now? Like that can happen? And then to find out that it hadn't happened for this company, I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. This is the one we're really. I
can remember that
at.
The image that the professor was like, okay, it's a very trustworthy, it's a very, and also for me the part that they were in Europe, and that they were working with the company for so long and very reliable.
Yeah.
And that's also my experience that we had in these 2 years. There's never a problem. If we have any issues or we need any spare parts or we have doubt, we can call it. They send us everything we need.
Yeah.
And then it's only after that I started checking the company on Facebook or their blog and everything. And that's when I was like, okay, this feels, I think we made a very good decision.
Yeah, that was the same for us. Like after the fact, there were all these things where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so thankful we made, like the MRI thing. Like I didn't know anything about the MRI stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know, and just like that, I think the company philosophy, like the more I kind of get to know the company and the more I realize like they really care about their patients. They really care about, you know, the backward compatibility, the fact that Liam will always get to use the new devices, like those kinds of things. Like they're just little things that you don't have to do, but they do, and they go above and beyond. And that just, I've just felt every step of the way, I felt like we've been in really good hands. And that's so helpful.
Yeah, because it's a decision for a lifetime. Almost.
And that was the other thing that was so like overwhelming, was that I was making this decision for him that was going to be his whole life. Like long after I was gone and he was dealing with it, like this was going to be a decision that he would have the repercussions of. And so
I actually already have a couple of parents coming up to me, like saying, "Oh, his processors look so nice and they're so beautiful." I have to say, if I look at other, that's my. It's just the features. They look. It's a personal thing, of course.
No, I get it. I get it.
It's still something that. Do you also find it hard that the processors become like a part of your?
Oh,
if he's not wearing it, that it's almost weird?
It's weird. I remember thinking, like when he was first diagnosed, being like,
oh no, he has to wear it.
Is he going to want to take them off for school pictures? Or like if we do family pictures, are we going to wear, like just dumb, like really dumb. And now I'm like embarrassed, because now if he chose not to wear them for like a school picture, I would be mad. Like that's you, like you have nothing to be ashamed of. No. It doesn't look bad or weird. No. It's such a part of him that you're right. Like when he's not wearing it, it is like kind of like, it doesn't look right.
Yeah. I had other parents who were just had the diagnosis, and they were also like, "Oh no, and he has with things." And I was like, "No," I was like, "Don't worry." I said, "In a couple of months, you will see it will become a part of him or her, and there's just that's what it is. It's all good."
Have you had any recent moments where like just I feel like I get these every so often where it just comes flooding to me of how amazing it is that our kids live in this time where they have access to this technology.
Especially when I speak to deaf adults who are in their 30s or in their 40s and or even older, and it's really it breaks my heart to see how in the Netherlands or in Belgium how deaf people were treated.
I think I've found a lot of awareness recently about knowing the history, and like for kids like ours that were born into hearing families, like in America, like they were often like removed from the family, like they were sent to like special boarding schools for deaf kids, or they were raised by deaf families, because the idea was that like you couldn't raise your kid, like he needed to be in this deaf community. And so like for me, I like there's times where we'll be at like a big family party where there's lots of extended family. Like obviously if we didn't have this, like our family would learn to sign and he would be able to sign, but I can't expect everybody to do that. And so there are moments where we'll be in like a big hearing community, and Liam's just like, he's just one of the people, and he can hear everything that's being said, whether it's being said directly to him or he's overhearing it. And the fact that he like, the implants didn't just change his life, it changed our family's life. You know, like he doesn't have to choose between a deaf community and his hearing family. I don't have to feel like my son is always a little bit removed. Like he's just fully integrated and he's a part of it. And that in and of itself, that's the thing that gets me emotional, is like just thinking about what it could have looked like if we didn't have this.
Yeah, you know? I think that Medel kind of opened like a whole window of opportunity. That, if you look at 20, 30, 40 years ago, it would have been impossible. With no disrespect for the deaf community or sign language, that I all think is wonderful. But the power of speech and hearing, I mean, we live in such, the world we live in, it's almost, it's difficult to even have a professional life.
Yeah, well, you can be so connected to everything.
Yeah.
What's the most common question that you get about Jackson's implant?
So can he actually hear now? Yeah.
Yeah. We get a lot of, what are those things?
Yeah, and what are
on
those
his
things?
ears?
Yeah.
And what's great now is that Liam, I'll say, why don't you ask him? You know,
Yeah.
and then they ask Liam and he's like, oh, these are my cochlear implant processors. I can't hear without them and they help me to hear. And if he's being really like, he'll go into the whole spiel about how a cochlear implant works. And, but it's, I mean, that's the most common is like, what are those things? You know, and I always love it when kids ask because they'll ask me and then I'll tell them, well, you know, go ahead and ask him. And
Kids don't have any reservations. They don't have hesitance. No.
Yeah. For sure.
I was in the supermarket once, and there was a woman with her girl, and the child, and also the woman was looking at me. I told her, you can ask. I said, it's perfectly fine. And then, Mommy, what are those things on his head? I was like, this is magic ears.
Yep. Does he call them? What does he call them?
No, he doesn't really. Yeah, ears.
Yeah.
In the morning, I will ask him, do you want to wear your ears?
Yep. Yep.
Sometimes it's no, sometimes it's yes. And then, Do you ever? Well, Liam puts them on himself.
He does, yeah.
And when he was younger, how did you?
We would put them on as soon as he woke up. I mean, he was wearing them all of the waking hours. And we tried really hard to like encourage him to do it himself as early as possible because I think it gives them some autonomy and some sense of, you know, responsibility.
Yeah.
But yeah, and we take him off. I mean, he takes them off at night and
Yeah. He never had any negative.
He really didn't. No. I mean, we
Sometimes
had hearing aids first. So when he was 3 when he got his first implant, and so he's a little bit out of that age of like when he had hearing aids. Sometimes he would take them off and play with them, but we were really like that was the one thing I was really strict about. Was like you have to keep these on and not letting you take them off. And then we got over the hump, and he was fine.
Yeah.
Sometimes when he first wakes up in the morning, he if it's noisy, he's like, it's too loud. You have to be, you know, like he can't. That adjustment to like sound is hard in the morning. Did you have who helped you on Jackson's hearing journey?
Who helped us? Well, of course, the audiologist, all the people at the hospital, the whole team. Those are the people who helped us. I had found different parents because that's always, I think, the most valuable. Yeah. I got online and looked up on a lot of stuff. I met some wonderful deaf people who helped me a lot to understand. I think that's about it. I have a wonderful husband. Without him, I would have been lost. We pick each other up. When he gets down, I help him. When I get, though it's really team. It's a team. It's teamwork. Yeah. And even though my family and my in-laws don't do sign language, but from day one they were like, you know, it's even communication. You can communicate in a lot of ways, even if as long as there's love and sounds very cliche, but I think a child will feel that. Just to look at your face. I've always avoided for Jackson to see me sad or to see me cry. I never wanted him to. It's like, you don't have to see my sorrow or my grief. It's like you will see mommy happy, and that was always a thing for me. Like, no. How do you see Liam's future?
Oh man, honestly, now I think his future looks the same as it did before he was diagnosed. Like now, you know, like I said, there was that moment in diagnosis where like everything about what I could expect or what to imagine disappeared. And I had no idea what the future looked like. And now I don't think there's anything that he's not going to be able to do. No. And so for me, his future looks the same as his sister's who are hearing. And that is, that's amazing.
Does he worry about, no?
No, he doesn't know any different. And he doesn't, you know, obviously he's in a school where he's the only kid with hearing loss. So he knows that he's different, but I don't think he ever sees it. Oftentimes he gets frustrated with me because I think I'm trying to be like, what accommodations do you need, or how do you need to like help yourself? And he's kind of like, just relax, like I'm fine, you know. And so, which is neat. I mean, that's also the goal, right? Just for him to feel like
independent.
Independent, and he doesn't need to, so
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Good.